Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Cantina Corner podcast, where, as always, we are at max capacity. So make sure you grab yourself a drink, grab yourself a seat, get comfortable. We are going to be getting into some interesting conversation today on a topic we really haven't talked about too much, and I'm excited to get into. But as always, in the beginning of this episode, I want everyone to know, like every other episode, we are sponsored by Rep Sports, the proud owner of Raise Energy, where they have a ton of great products. And if you use our discount code Cantina Corner at checkout, it'll get you 15% off anything that you buy from them. Great discounts, great product, highly recommend it. But we are going to be getting into some UFO discussion today. There's some stuff that has come out recently and some stuff that's going to be happening here in the beginning of next month as to kind of why we're getting into this. But it's something that we've always wanted to talk about. You know, we have it as a channel in our Discord that I always tell people to get in here for, you know, because we share stuff in there all the time. But today we're actually going to be discussing a lot more stuff involved with UFOs and different things with the government, you know, stuff involving like Blue Book, anything like that that you might already know. So I'm looking forward to that. Are you guys prepped to get into some UFO discussion?
Let's do it.
Of course.
Good. And by the way, as always, because I'm looking for another shout out from a sponsor, drinking some Terramana today. Dwayne The Rock Johnson's tequila. Highly recommend people try it. So good.
I'm good. I can't do tequila. It takes me from 0 to 100 in like 2 seconds.
No, this is a good sipping
to
tequila.
happen real quick.
See, I don't sip tequila either. I just have a bad habit of just
Bottle just tips one way.
Yeah.
Well, I figured it was fitting if we're going to be getting into aliens and UFOs. I was like, I need some good.
Gotta be drunk.
Aliens.
What's that dude's name?
What, the guy from the History Channel?
Yeah. It's like I think his last name's like Tsoukalos or something. It's like George.
All I know is his hair gets crazier and crazier as you watch
every
the
season.
history.
Yeah,
every season it's just like
that show started off pretty good too.
Giorgio Tsoukalos. It did start off good. That was I think the first like couple really solid, and then I'd stopped watching it for a while, and then I found out they're like on season 1 million or something. So I tuned back in to watch it, and I was just like, okay. Now you guys are getting a little weird. Like you can tell the show was so popular that they just tried to just do whatever to keep it going. It got real weird.
Yeah, they tried to tie too much stuff to say that was the reason for aliens, and you're like, really? No. And that guy always was staring at the screen. He was just like, yeah, like they're out there, man. Like, you know, there's defined evidence, and his hair's just like straight the fuck up.
His hair's great. It was always great.
But yeah, let's get into kind of what came out recently. There was some news articles that have come out as far as some UFO sighting videos that, you know, obviously has happened before, has been out in the news, you know, back in 2019 and years before that, and so on and so on. But I know that the official date that they're going to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cody, if you might be able to explain this a little bit better, on June 1st, they're going to be releasing what exactly? I know we're supposed to be getting some kind of declassified information as far as what's going on with these UFOs.
Yeah, they're supposed to declassify more stuff. We'll see if it actually happens, because it's technically something that Trump implemented. So
was it like one of the last couple things he did, like before he left office or something? Was it?
And they did do
like
the
executive
first part.
order or some shit.
They did do the first part of it. They released the CIA released all that shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is supposed to be like the second wave of it. I'm holding my breath, but subscribe to the YouTube channel because we'll probably be doing an update if shit comes out. Just saying.
Yep.
Yeah. Totally.
We'll break it down.
Because I know the original thing I know, if I'm correct on this, when he enacted it, they had like 180 days until it was going to like come out.
They had to put so much out. They had to declassify so much stuff within a certain time frame. And then they have to do the rest of it within, I think June 1st was like the end date. So, I mean, they could do it more, which they actually just, I think it was 2 days ago, somebody from the Pentagon had said that they have, you know, documents and sightings of UFOs from every single day since 2014. They've at least had like some sort of documentation of a UFO every single day since 2014, which is kind of crazy. You always think like, oh, why doesn't this happen more often? It's like, well, it does. They literally just don't tell you or suppress some of it. I mean, who knows how good some of the footage is?
I don't know, because I know a lot of the footage that comes out when I was listening to, people who have like been in different parts of government and in different capacities. They were saying that a lot of videos that come out are the reason they look so shitty is because that's just how they present it. But he was stating, and I believe it was Chris Mellon, who I know we're going to get into discussing, because I have some information articles about stuff that he was talking about recently. But he was saying that a lot of these videos are actually like in high def and like really clear and like really, really nice quality. And it's easier to depict things and whatnot. And he says that they don't really release it in that fashion. So there's supposedly more high quality videos if they actually show it that I would hope to be able to see.
Yeah.
But like I was referring to as far as Chris Mellon, for anyone who's not, kind of up to speed on who he is, just kind of off of his bio here online, Christopher Carl Mellon. He's a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence during the Clinton and George W. Bush administrations. Later for Security and Information Operations. He formerly served as the Staff Director of the United States Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. So he was during that whole beginning of the Clinton, going into the George W. Bush administration. As far as like what he's done. But I mean, he's been big in the community for a long time, which I just started learning about. And I know both of you, correct me if I'm wrong, you know quite a bit about this guy, right?
I wouldn't say quite a bit, but I mean, I knew of him, and then he was on Joe Rogan recently. So
that's about it for me. Yeah, it was Joe Rogan's podcast. Then I kind of looked and I didn't do like a whole lot more looking into it, but just some light stuff after that podcast. And I was like, okay, this guy is pretty legit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't get a chance to listen or watch the entire episode, but I did get to watch like some like clips from Joe Rogan's YouTube page, kind of like a snippet on him talking about like the UFO sightings, talking about, Bob Lazar and different things like that. Him actually, Chris Mellon actually going to like Area 51, and describing like what he saw there for as much as that he said. And he's a really interesting guy to listen to. And there's tons of interviews that you can find with him that I was looking at before we did this, where he's discussing all these different things and how we've kind of dropped the ball on, how we handle this stuff, how we release this information, how we investigate it. Like he's very critical about how we go about this. And I know he stated in the Joe Rogan podcast and other videos I saw where he was talking about how he's always had a fascination with UFOs ever since he was a kid. And so, when obviously he was discussing in the podcast, when he grew up and finally got into government, how he slowly started like trying to figure out the right time to ask questions and really get into what he's always been fascinated about. So, I mean, this is a guy that I wouldn't say, like when we were talking about that guy from the History Channel, you look at him and it's like 50-50 if he's like a crackpot or if he's like actually intelligent and he just looks crazy. But someone like Christopher Mellon, I believe, like there's a lot of legitimacy to what he talks about. He's not just like a full-blown conspiracy theorist or a crazy person. Like he's looking at it from an actual scientific and study standpoint. And I think that makes it interesting to listen to what he has to say.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like he always, like, I think in that Joe Rogan podcast, he talks about how, he tends to believe stories that line up with multiple people other than just, the one-off sightings. It's hard to tell who's telling the truth in that point, but like the Commander Fravor stuff and the Go Fast video, like you have multiple different military people witnessing the same thing and having the same stories, and they weren't together, but they witnessed it at the same time without knowing it, Yeah,
it definitely lends more credence to some stories like that for sure.
And I know it's very questionable to Bob Lazar. Giant too, but Mellon is very what would be the right word?
Skeptical,
yeah.
Skeptical of Bob Lazar's full story.
Yeah, and for anyone listening or watching who doesn't know anything about Bob Lazar, like I didn't before we did this, just to give you a kind of synopsis like I did with Chris, Bob Lazar, or formerly or officially known as Robert Scott Lazar, is an American conspiracy theorist who claims to have been hired in the late 1980s to reverse engineer extraterrestrial technology at what he described as a secret site called S4.
Yep, which is a part of Area 51. And I will say that's one of the things that, to me, gives some credence to what he says, because at S4, we now know is a real place in Area 51, but back when he was saying it was not public knowledge.
Yeah.
And I know the government tried to hide the fact that he worked at, what was it, in Texas where he worked at that place, and he put that engine on a fucking Honda Civic or whatever, the jet engine.
Yeah. I can't remember the company, but that's what, yeah, they like tried to hide it too, and ended up coming out that he did actually work there.
Yeah, he actually worked there, and people knew who he was. He went there in this documentary, which, I mean, you can watch the documentary if you want. I kind of lost interest in it.
The one on Netflix?
Yeah, I just think it was poorly put together.
I definitely, I agree. The presentation of it could have definitely been a lot better on that. Because, like, yeah, because I feel kind of the same about that Bob Lazar. Like, some of his stuff there is something there. He's telling the truth on some stuff, but I feel like too, he pieced together maybe other people's memories and stuff, and kind of crafts his own thing.
Yeah, or maybe stories.
Now, whether he believes it or not,
worked.
like, I don't know. Like, he could believe it because, you know, human memory is such a faulty thing. Like that, but I do feel like, I don't know, some of it definitely is true, but I am kind of skeptical myself of it. And that documentary didn't really help. When I went into watching it, I was kind of with an open mind, like, oh, I want to watch this and see what he's got all about and everything. But towards the end of it, I was just kind of like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and on the subject of being skeptical or being a skepticist of things, just before we get into more of the meat and potatoes of this, I want to ask you guys, like, what is your belief as far as how well do you believe? Because I know a lot of misconception with the word or the term UFO. People always attribute it strictly to aliens, which UFO by definition is unidentified foreign object. So it doesn't mean that it's like an alien when they're using that term.
It's an old term, by the way.
That's why they're starting to use that newer one now. Is the unidentified aerial phenomenon?
Aerial phenomenon, yeah. Because UFO is so synonymous with like flying saucers. They're trying to break that stigma.
And as far as that goes, going back to what I was going to ask you guys, like, what is your belief? How far do you believe the whole UFO alien phenomenon? Do you think that there is this what this is, or like, what's your kind of like thoughts on that?
I'll let Nick go first.
I feel like at this point, you got to be crazy if you don't think like aliens or something exist, like some type of like extraterrestrial life. We can't be the only life in the galaxy. Like, that's a big fucking galaxy. And we don't even know, like, we can't even travel to most of that shit. Like, we're just now getting to Mars and extensively studying that. Like, I don't know, you'd have to be crazy to think there's not other life out there.
Yeah.
But with regards to these stories and stuff, I was just going to say that some of them, I think it's like a mixture. Some of it is probably military stuff that citizens do see because, you know, like we've talked about before, too, technology in the military is like, it's so far advanced. The civilian population gets a lot of their technology late from the military and stuff. So it's like they're so far ahead of us that I do think some of this stuff is definitely alien life forms or something. But I do think there is probably a fair amount of it that is maybe just military stuff going on that we don't fucking know what we're really seeing, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree. What about you, Cody? I see you smirking over there. What do you got on that?
I don't believe it at all.
You don't believe any of it?
I'm just kidding. Yeah, of course I believe it, dude.
I was like, oh shit.
No. I've got a whole, like, I'm a huge Nicholas knows this. The Chariot of the Gods is an old book, and it's basically about how, like, way back when, like, we interpret old ancient writings, you know, they say gods and stuff coming down in chariots and stuff.
Yeah.
What if they didn't have, like, a language for aliens, or, you know, they're gods, they're coming from the skies and coming down, so like the Egyptians and everything. I mean I'm a firm believer in that. That's actually, it's hard to convince me otherwise that we haven't been visited before. And my thing is I'm starting to believe the fact that we've probably been kept tabs on. You know, we were probably, ancient civilization was probably given certain tools and certain, like, you know, pushing this race of humans that, you know, these aliens stumbled upon in a certain direction. Like, here, we'll give you this knowledge and we'll just see where these guys go for themselves. And I think, and I honestly do believe it, because you see a lot of these sightings and stuff have to do with like nuclear power plants and stuff. Like, shit'll just hover over a nuclear power plant and then just disappear. I think we've gotten to the point where we need to be kept like on closer tabs. Like, are we messing with shit we literally can't understand or know the true power of, like nuclear explosions and stuff? I mean, look at Chernobyl. People still like don't go there, you know, like. So, I mean, yeah, I do believe all this shit. I really do. I think there's a bunch of different conspiracy theories that branch off of it for sure. I mean, nobody fucking knows for sure, I don't think. But
yeah, but at its core, I mean, I would agree with you.
Yeah. And then, I mean, especially with, was it the Israel dude?
It was like the ex-Israeli defense minister or something.
Yeah,
like
he said that there's a galactic federation.
He was,
like there's literally a galactic federation. He came out to say this, like the Trade Federation,
Yeah, it's like straight up.
What did he say? There was like 9 universes in it or something?
I don't remember like the specific details, except like, they didn't want to accept us until, or we couldn't get in until like we kind of like calm shit down or like kind of get it pulled, you know, like just stop doing shit and fucking shit up, like, you know,
right?
Like
which honestly, if you think about it, like would make sense. Like we aren't worthy to be shown this, you know, great power that's out there. And, you know, I do believe, and this is where I think, you know, Bob Lazar's story kind of turns into like what Nicholas was saying. Like, sure, I believe that he worked at Area 51. I believe that some of his story is warped by shit he heard while working there. Like, you know, like just water cooler gossip type stuff. Like I know he said on Joe Rogan's podcast, you know, he believes that one of the UFOs because he said there was supposedly 9 UFOs at Area 51 when he was working there, and one of them was from an archaeologist dig. Which that's like, well, how do you know that for sure? Like, that's where I was like, I can see where this guy just kind of heard some things and rumors going around and just kind of went from it because, you know. Christopher Mellon, he talks about like the propulsion systems on these UFOs in the gimbal video and the go fast video where they're like literally bending gravity and using gravity to fucking travel. And it's literally what Bob Lazar said he was working on. Like they were working on this little thing.
That unknown element or whatever.
Yeah.
What the hell's the name?
There's element 115, but I forget the name of it.
Because I remember them referencing it when I was watching the video.
Moscovium.
What was it?
Moscovium.
And Lazar was talking about that in the 80s when that was not on the periodic table yet. Yeah. It was not actually discovered. So that's more of the stuff where it's like, okay, well, this guy did know something, but maybe like the whole story isn't truthful type deal.
Yeah, I would definitely say from what it kind of sounds like from what you guys are explaining with him, you kind of got to cherry pick his, you know, what he claims. You know, you can't just take it all at face value.
There's stuff that other stories kind of solidify as like, okay, well, this guy said this in the 80s and we have like video evidence and other people coming out with stories that, you know, there's certain points that do line up and match. And so it's like, this guy's not completely full shit.
Yeah. But I can see where stuff gets warped and like you say, water cooler talk, or he probably overheard things and then he's just throwing it out as if it's fact and you know, who knows?
What do you believe?
I believe it 100%. Like there's no possible way that we cannot be the only ones here. Like there has to be something else. You know,
you ever see any shit in the military?
No, me personally, no. Like I would say it if I did, but I wasn't. I mean, my job and what I was doing, there's no fucking way. I mean, I wasn't in any capacity to where I would see anything even remotely possible to something like that. Which I find funny.
Flying around any of the bases you were stationed at? No.
I was in normal places.
Just
I wasn't
NSA
anywhere.
People watching you.
Yeah. I wasn't anywhere cool. The only thing that I got to experience was, you know, this is happening, but the whole world doesn't know about it and we're not going to publicize it. That's the only thing that I saw that I was like, that is real. Like that happens.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, no, I didn't get anything alien related. That I would have to be like some weird position, job, whatever. But I believe it. I believe that it's a real thing. I you know, find it hard to believe that all this stuff is fake where people debunk it, you know, going back into you know, like the Blue Book Project back in the day where the government was purposely trying to send I forgot his name, the guy from the Air Force to purposely debunk all this stuff back when they wanted to get rid of, all the information and get rid of the conspiracy, if you will, of aliens and UFOs and all that stuff. And, then obviously he started believing, and, he's talked publicly about it after the fact, later on in life about, what he truly believed in it. And, it's interesting how they try to cover shit up. And I know one thing Chris Mellon said that I did agree with, and I understand why it's easy for people to say, why don't they just release it and just show us all this stuff? And it's like, well, a lot of the times when they find these videos or they capture these things, sometimes the way that they come across this stuff might be using technology or means that we don't want our enemies to know that we have the capability of. You know what I mean? That puts national security at risk, because we don't want everyone to know that we have the means to do what we're doing as to how we came across that.
Yeah.
Whether it's recording something, sensing it, radar, sonar, whatever. And I agreed with that. So I get that from, a security standpoint. And that's kind of where it sucks, where, you want the truth, but you don't want to put your country at risk by throwing all that out there. And then you kind of show your hand, if you will.
Yeah.
So I get it, but I'm curious to see what happens on June 1st, what they will actually let out. Because when you say stuff like that, it makes me feel like we're still not going to get nothing. They'll just give us something to say they did, just to check off the box, but it'll just be kind of like a blue ball situation. It'll be nothing special.
Yeah.
It'll be something new, but more of the same, if that makes sense.
What's your best case scenario? June 1st, that they release?
For me, it would actually be a clear high def footage and actual paperwork of any situation, even if they didn't correlate together, if it was a video from one and actual documentation of another, I want clear evidence, if that makes sense, because you even go back to shit and I don't believe in Sasquatch, but the Sasquatch video effect, where every time we see something, it's blurred, it's pixelated, it's shitty, and it's only a couple seconds. It's I want something long, clear as day to see, so we can derive our own opinions about it. I want something like that. That's my best case scenario. I don't think we're going to get a lot of stuff, but I at least want something solid.
What about you, Nick?
My best case. Mine would go back decades. I want a bunch of shit.
I want it all.
They've been sitting on this shit forever and just leaking little bullshit things out here and there to either put stuff out there just to put it out there or just muddy the waters and get people calling other people conspiracy theorists, all this bullshit. So my best case scenario is just I want some good fucking declassification. Is it gonna happen? Fuck no. But
No.
That's what I would like to see. I want to see fucking just decades worth of shit put out there.
Yeah, you ain't getting that.
No.
I don't even think we're getting a high def photo.
I feel like it's gonna be I honestly don't even think it's gonna happen. I think it's gonna get pushed back or something.
I agree.
And they're gonna blame maybe some COVID bullshit or something oh, we don't have the resources or the refunds to do this because of blah 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 and
that, and there's more
whatever the
things.
fuck. Yeah, so I really don't think
I wouldn't be surprised if we did get a bunch of paperwork if a lot of it was redacted. They release it, but it's just all it's just all redacted.
Well, I mean, obviously, my best case scenario is my best case scenario. I don't even want a photo, because I can understand how why would we willingly, and I'm sure China and Russia and all that, they probably have their own photos and their own sightings to go through.
Oh yeah.
But why would we just give up that kind of information? Oh, this is what we've seen. We've got these pictures of it, so they can study what we have. You know what I mean? So I do understand it from that aspect, but my best case scenario, just fucking come out and say it. Yes, there are UFOs. There is a galactic federation. We have encountered aliens. It would, and it would it would get to the point, and it would be yeah, they do exist. I don't need to see it, but I would. You just know. I feel that the public reaction would be insane. Holy shit! Yep, they've confirmed it.
Dude, I feel people would fucking go crazy.
They would, but they wouldn't know what they're up against still.
But that's why I would just be fuck it. They just. I don't know if people can handle it. That'd be awesome. I'd be down for it for sure. But
dude, at some point the public's got to be ready. If we're
Hey,
ready
no, I
for
agree.
it, it's now more than ever. There's no question about it. No question
Gotta
about
bear
it.
the responsibility.
I mean,
don't be bitches about it.
I'm freaking American citizens have been freaking out since like 1952 when the UFO was supposedly over Washington or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, we're fucking. I mean, I think the public can handle it. I don't think it would be that shocking. I really don't. Maybe to some people who just have, because there's a lot of closed-minded people in this world. But I feel like, I know we've talked about this before. If anything, I think the last 4 years, at least in this country, have opened more people's minds to things. Especially now,
Yeah.
because I mean, we're not even a half a year after that, and like a lot of things, it's like, wait, you guys said this, now you're saying this. Why are we going back and forth here?
Yeah.
So I could just see where the public would be more understanding of that, even if it was just like a 1-page document confirming everything.
I would agree. I mean, if we got an answer of like yes or no, I think that would be great. That would be great. That way they would just kill.
That's all it's gonna be, literally. Just a sheet of paper in big bold. They exist.
Are we alone? No.
We are not alone. And then you're gonna have people like an Independence Day party on the tops of roofs waiting to get fucking beamed down with fucking aliens.
That would suck if it's like Independence Day.
I
That'd be
feel like
We
if
won,
something-
dude. Come on.
That's a movie, though. We don't have
We
a young
won.
Jeff Goldblum and Will Smith like that anymore. They're a little older now.
Who knows, dude? You
Yeah,
don't
we
know
ain't
what
doing nothing until
technology
the
we
fat
got.
lady sings.
That's another reason I like. I just don't understand how you can't believe it. Look at the technological advancement human beings have made
Yeah.
in the last like thousand. Like think 100 years from now.
Yeah.
Like they didn't even know like a cell phone. I mean, Jesus. That was like invented in our lifetime. It's not that long ago.
And it's crazy.
Fucking, cars too. You go back, what was it, invented just over 100 years ago? We're already on electric vehicles. Like
Yeah.
that's advanced so fucking quick. Like,
We're on the cusp of self-driving vehicles.
yeah,
Yeah. It is
technology
crazy to
does.
think about.
Technology does just replicate so much. It's just faster and faster as it goes on.
Here's something I was actually, because after that Mellon was on Joe Rogan, I was reading some articles, and this one guy's article, he was a skeptic of aliens and UFOs and stuff, but
Yeah.
even he was talking about like technology. He believes like the biggest evidence for us making contact with aliens is the technological advancement. He was like, even in the Jetsons, they didn't have a cell phone. Like they had flying cars and stuff, but they didn't have a cell phone. We have iPhones. Like that's crazy to think about. A cartoon from the 80s, like where they're literally in a future state driving fucking spaceships back and forth, but they don't have a cell phone.
Steve Jobs talking to aliens.
Hey, who knows, dude?
You think Elon Musk is an alien?
No, see, that's where it's like, now we're getting a little crazy.
Well, that's why I was throwing it in.
If it came out to be true, would I be like, holy shit? Probably a little bit, but I mean, as of right now, no, I don't see that being the case.
Well, no, I was just being ridiculous.
No,
just
I know,
for
but I'm saying like
joke's sake.
that's where I can understand people don't want to get into it, because there are like I said, there's just so many different ways you can go with the conspiracies and the lizard people.
Mom's
and,
an alien.
That's
what it is. He's only half alien.
Mark Zuckerberg.
Well, I mean, there was a weird ass
He
release.
looks like a fucking alien.
I don't know if you remember this, Nicholas. Remember when we were like obsessed with Nikola Tesla for a little bit, and
yeah,
the CIA did release something that he was from Venus. It was like a 1-sentence thing, and it was literally like that. The CIA said that he was from Venus.
Yeah, it was some weird shit. I can't remember because that was so long ago too. I was reading that, but I remember whatever we were watching showed that, and then we started looking that up, and it was like that was some weird shit.
Yeah, it was like nobody tried to debunk it. It's just public knowledge. It's declassified knowledge, but it's just weird. It's like probably one of the smartest humans to ever walk this earth, who did all his, figured out all that shit with electricity and reusable energy and shit by studying the stars. And I mean, we talk about it all the time, Nicholas, like astrology is such a lost art form. I feel like nowadays, where like you look back and that's all they used for this precise math. Like it's insane.
I mean, they used it for everything. I mean, even fucking navigation. I mean, we use our phones for navigation. Back in the day, astrology was how you found your way around places.
Right.
Yep.
It's almost like you almost wonder what's the superior, like, I don't want to say race because that totally sounds weird, but like era of humans. Like, if you had like 20 humans from the modern era and 20 humans from like the 1900s, like who would survive out in the wild? Or like even go back even further, like 1700s, like who is more fit? It's probably the farther you get, the better they are.
Well, yeah, because we would do better, but we're dependent on the things that we've created technologically.
Yeah.
That's the problem, is that we would be better, but we depend on those things. They just depend on what they know and what is around them. And that's the difference. And like when you're talking about Nikola Tesla, you know, depending on astrology and everything like that, it's like, it is a lost art form. Like, I mean, you look at now, we haven't even started going back to space until Elon Musk started the whole SpaceX program and, you know, was getting us back up there. It's like we even lost that, which always blew my mind that always got put on the back burner, that we weren't even going back up into space.
Yeah.
You know,
Obama.
Like it blows my mind. It's you know, I feel that if something came out to where, you know, aliens are real, UFOs are real, the whole bit, it would have, and I hate using this as a reference, but it's the biggest unifying reference that I know. It would have like a global 9/11 effect where the entire world would unify in trying to figure out what that is.
WMDs.
Signing Patriot Acts.
But I mean, I feel that would be a global unifying thing, you know, like everyone would be on board to figure that out or go up there and like try to reach out or do whatever, you know. I mean, it drives me insane as a society that we don't push for the stars, as stupid as that sounds. And we're still worried about fighting what we have here. It's like, why aren't we reaching further? Why aren't we trying to go further? We're so worried about, you know, resources here, problems here. It's like we have an entire galaxy of shit, and we have the means of going into space. I mean, we have rockets now that, you know, have the ability to land back on planet Earth and not just be disposed of where we have to make another one. Like we have those capabilities, and we could be reaching out and figuring out this shit, but we're not. And it's like, it blows my mind that we're still having these conversations about, is it real? What's out there? It's like, we could probably already be out there if we weren't such a destructive society.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I mean, I think that's why I think the public would be ready for that information is a lot.
Oh yeah.
And especially with, I mean, Trump started up Space Force, and it's one of the very, I mean, you could count on one hand how many things that man did not catch flack for doing, and that's one of them. And it sounds ridiculous. Yeah. And he actually got zero pushback from that.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something
it's
to
much needed. Yeah.
I agree. I mean, at some point, I mean, there's going to be Star Wars. Like, not the movie, but there's going to be wars fought in space. Like, it's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know we have obviously that whole thing where like no one can, you know, control space or like deem that space is theirs or the moon or whatever. But I agree, and I think that is smart that he did that. And I know some people did give, I wouldn't say flack, but like from a political level, but like, you know, us as citizens were like, Space Force, that's retarded. Like, why do we need that? Nothing's going on in space. Why do we have to protect it? It's like, yeah, but don't you want to be the first ready for it when you need to? You know, especially with how much that we're now going back into space and doing more things.
Yeah.
Even from a like non-alien perspective, just to have something up there to like, we travel through that Taurid meteor stream like twice a year, and even though the odds aren't like, you know, the odds are ridiculous, but we go through that meteor stream, we could easily get smacked by something that just, you know, who knows how big it ended up being and how much it smacks the Earth. It could just destroy like half the Earth or something like that. It's always a possibility. So even from having that Space Force up there just to maybe monitor stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because you just push those, you know, meteors off just a little bit, just give them that nudge to where you're just fine. Even in that regard, it's like it's much needed.
Yeah, I agree.
It's global protection.
Yeah. And again, something that, I think the whole Earth could get behind is like, hey, we might destroy each other, but let's not let that destroy us. Like, let's work together here and get this done.
It's kind of crazy, too, because that was never part of Trump's plan going in. but it's something that it didn't. What was it, like a year and a half in that he started talking about it? So it's like he found out something. I mean, whether it was like, you know, there may be, you know, like some meteor showers that we might have to like look into that we've been tracking. They're on course to hit us at some point. Or, I mean, maybe the whole like Federation thing was like, he was briefed on it. He was like, what? And like, honestly, why wouldn't we have a branch of military that's, you know, mentally fit and prepared to handle communications if there are any?
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, you can't call it coincidence that he started Space Force and got all of that up and running and enacted that, as well as putting in the 180-day release of information about UFOs and everything. I mean, those two things correlate too close for it to be a coincidence, you know, for him to be the first to do both of those things.
Yeah.
Like, it just seems odd. There's got to be something more, like you said.
Let me ask you this. Is there like a version of a conspiracy theory that you like favorite or think like that's probably the case? Like, say the Galactic Federation or interdimensional beings, or they live underwater. What do they call it? Like inner Earth or whatever.
Yeah.
Is there anyone that you particularly like? That's what I totally could see, type thing.
I mean, me personally, I just think that there are beings, or at least creatures, not even beings, because I mean, when we think, a lot of people think of aliens, we think of like an intelligent species. It could just be creatures. I mean, creatures have a brain. Creatures know what's going on. Like, you look at your animals, people train dogs. Like, there are intelligent things that aren't actual human-like.
Yeah.
You know, in that aspect. And you look at movies, and I know they're movies, and it's a bit of a stretch, but when you look at movies that deal with like vast amounts of civilizations in space, there's a lot of weird looking fucking creatures that are able to communicate and do different things. And I mean, the fact that we can find bacteria on Mars leads me to believe that there is some evolutionary process on other planets that may not be up to where we're at. Maybe they are, but I mean, if we can find bacteria and shit like that living on a planet that we deem uninhabitable, that we can't survive on, there has to be something. And that's the only one that I strongly like gravitate towards. No pun intended.
Yeah, there's not one that I don't know. I like all of them, and I could believe all of them. Be it underwater, be it interdimensional, or the Trade Federation. Like, there's really not one that I can't see being real. I mean, because you think about too how vast the oceans are on this planet, and we know more about space than we do our own oceans, and we know jack shit about space.
Yeah.
So like,
and Antarctica.
Yeah, how many countries have military bases and scientific military bases, research bases there in Antarctica? Every single fucking country.
Yeah.
Every single country. Well, at least advanced countries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, so yeah, honestly, there's the interdimensional one is a little weird, but at the same time, like, again, maybe that's somewhere where they talk about we only use a certain percentage of our brain, where maybe we're not that evolved yet to tap into that other dimension. So it's like, if we know that there's untapped potential in the brain, maybe that has something to do with not everybody being able to see these interdimensional beings or something.
Yeah.
It just,
well, it's like I was saying with like the creature analogy I was using. I mean, dolphins on our own planet are more intelligent than we are. Yeah. Like, that just goes to show you right there. Like, they may not be humans, but they are biologically more intelligent than we are by their thought process and how they like do things with their brain as a creature. You know, I mean, that's case in point right there. I mean, you can't say that there might be something else somewhere else.
The only thing they don't know is consent.
That's true. They are rapey.
They know they can get away with it. That's the difference.
What about
dolphin police?
I don't know. I mean, Adam, I know you might not know much about this, but Nicholas might. What about like the Anunnaki theory?
Oh, it's like the I think that's like the ancient Sumerian one or something, where like they were the aliens, gods or whatever that came down and like. I mean, again, I can see that. Like,
they were forced underwater or some shit like that.
I could see that shit. I mean, again, like it's because it also, like, I always bring it back to like, we're not as smart as we think we are as humans. No. We don't know everything. So
Fuck no.
for people to like just say unequivocally no, that's not a possibility. It's like, well, you're full of shit then. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like we're smart and pretty advanced, but yeah, we don't know everything. You always have to leave that possibility open. I don't see how you can't. Like,
I
I
mean,
agree.
you could even look at it from, and I'm not religious, but like as humans, the people who are religious and are on our planet, you know, that are like, you know, religion's a real thing, God is real, or whoever you believe in. And when you ask, like, well, how can you prove that and stuff? And they say you got to have faith. And it's like, well, how is that any different than having faith in other beings from another planet? You know what I mean? Like, what is
yeah.
the difference? It's
You-
having faith in something we don't know concrete.
You want something that'll blow your mind. There's a guy I work with. I love him to death, but he believes in Bigfoot. Massive Bigfoot conspiracy theorist guy.
Okay.
Doesn't believe in aliens.
Really? Is that only because it's something that like has
He's
been
very religious.
okay?
So I don't know if that
probably
plays a
has a lot to do
factor.
with it.
But
Yeah.
still, I'm like, I even tell him, I'm like, how can you believe in Bigfoot, but not like be open minded to aliens?
It has to be the religious factor of it, because if you're super religious and you believe that God created us on this planet, then there would be having other beings from another planet completely, in my opinion, discredits the entire validity of like God or religion as a whole.
Now here's a question. What would you consider God?
I mean, to me, the definition of a God is a higher being. So it doesn't have to be a person that created us, but like I know you've talked about this, Cody, in conversations that we've had. You know, you've always correct me if I'm wrong. If I remember correctly, you always tied aliens and the pyramids, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, like something, if there was a being or said beings that came down and facilitated something like that to where you created monuments as such, you would consider them a god by definition, because they're a being above you and above everyone that's around you. That to me is what a god is.
Right. So you would define God as an alien.
Yes.
Yeah.
But not something.
I truthfully believe, and I mean that's why I'm saying it's like that's their word. Like they didn't have the word alien back then. They had God. I mean, think about it. All these different civilizations around the fucking planet believed in some sort of gods, and they're all similar. They're all similar.
Yep.
You know, they have a god for the same thing in each different religion. Those I'm just sold that those are aliens.
No, it has to be, because I mean the problem is it's been misconstrued, or I should say been written differently. You know what I mean? Like the way religions have been written go completely against the alien, you know, thought process about that. But I agree with you. I mean, if there is a god, it would have to be something tied to that.
Yeah.
And it's just lost its way. It's like a fish story. You know, you go fishing. It's like every time you tell the story, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And over time, it just loses its fucking validity as to what it really was in the beginning.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
I think maybe it was more suppression as opposed to it, like, you know, getting bigger and bigger. I think just because when you look at human history, like the different periods of time where, like we talked about after the Dark Ages, the church stepped in and suppressed a ton of information. We had a whole fucking podcast about going into that shit and all that.
The Vatican.
Yeah.
Julius
so it's like,
Caesar,
I think,
the Roman Empire. They all decided.
I think it's a lot more
on.
suppression of it and morphing it into a story that they could always use to just hold power or hold some type of authority to power or something like that. It just sucks.
I've always thought
Wish we could have, like, you know, the truth.
And you know, I went to church a lot growing up. And I know Nicholas went to a private school, so I mean, grew up following Catholic or Christian. You know,
yeah.
To me, it's the same ideology. With one's more hypocritical than the other, but anyways, it's just weird to me that all the writings and all the scripture that's been written in this world, and we're gonna follow one book, and we're gonna deem one book to be factual compared to everything else.
Yep.
It's just something I'll never understand how the world just fell for that.
Something I never got about religion either. Like, my mom would read me Bible stories and stuff like that, and I remember, like, when it came to God, I would always just ask, like, well, who created God? And she's like, he just always was. And I'm just like, what? That never made sense in my mind. And then growing up and learning that there's other, like, major religions, it's like, So these groups of people are just cool with like staking out everything like to that one and being like, all right, this is it. This is what I believe. And it's like so weird.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Well, you think
Yeah.
about it, it's the only, I'm not going to say it's the only, but it's probably, I'll say it's probably, because I don't know much about like, what do they call it? Muslims, and I'm not
Islam.
Islam. There you go.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But like it seems like you have all these ancient religions that have multiple gods for multiple things, but like we get to the Bible and it's one God and his son, and his son is God. I never understood that either. Like we're praying to Jesus, the God Almighty, but I thought God was his like dad. So he's everybody in one. Now we're just like fucking deciding he's everybody. It's fucking Eddie Murphy. He's playing every character in this book. Like,
Yep. Is that why in Judaism they don't pray to Jesus or anything?
Well,
or
yeah,
like,
they don't believe
even, like,
that the Messiah came. That's the difference between
it's God and then
Jews
is
and
it
Catholics. Yeah.
Moses is like their like
Moses
kind of
was
like their
the prophet,
Jesus, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Like
That's why they fucking hung. There, I know a lot of people are always like, "Well, why did the Jews end up hanging Jesus?" Like, well, they did not believe that's Jesus. They don't believe that is what happened. But neither do I. But either way,
it's got to be something bigger. It
has to
I
be.
wouldn't say bigger, but just something more real than that.
Yeah, I honestly like. I love ancient Egyptian history, and I believe that religion more than any other one that I've studied. It's the most tangible and makes the most sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, and now that you said Egyptian, it just hit me when I was talking about, there's a possibility of intelligent creatures, not like humanoid. I mean, look who the Egyptians worship. They worshipped cats.
Yeah.
Who's to say that there wasn't a creature from another planet that resembled what we consider to be a cat these days?
What is that from Captain Marvel? What do they call it? A Larkin or something like that? The cat.
Oh, the thing that,
but it's really
that
a
was
fucking
eating
alien.
people.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
You never know.
I was thinking Khajiits from Skyrim.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. And then like, you got Anubis, who's like half man, half dog.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of, a lot of like cross animal gods, but
Ogination.
yeah,
It has to be something.
it's just especially when you look at like the Egyptians. I mean, I say this all the time, but it's an example nobody can fucking disprove or anything. Like, how the fuck do the Mayans have a very similar fucking religion and belief system and build the same similar structures as the fucking Egyptians in the same time period where they had absolutely no communication with each other, or so we thought. We thought.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Christopher Columbus. I mean, growing up, we were lied to our entire life that Christopher Columbus is the one who discovered America.
Yeah.
Like, just blatantly lied to. Like, that's just what we're supposed to believe.
Yep. He even has his own day.
Yeah. Still, to this day, he has his own day.
Yep.
Like, yeah, cool. Guy did something that's been done years before that and fucking probably way before that.
But it's just something we hold on to, I mean, it's just, I don't know. There's too much lost in translation over the decades, centuries, whatever you want to call it. And there has to be something. And I want us to find the answer, or I want us to reach out further. Like I was saying earlier, I hate that we are so focused on our own planet and our own problems. I wish we would explore, and I hope I see it in my lifetime. But I feel like in all reality, you, me, any of us here on this show wouldn't see even a glimpse of like going out into the galaxy by any means until probably our deathbed.
Oh yeah.
In like all reality. I mean, I don't see it happening.
Nope.
Unfortunately, I don't either.
Not unless like some type of like super advanced aliens intervene and speed that up. I don't think so.
Just come here and just fuck us up. Put us in our place,
Which is funny you mentioned that because there's actually a really funny comedic movie. You know the guy from Shaun of the Dead, Simon Pegg, the main character in that movie.
Yeah.
Well, he's in a movie. It was a movie that came out in the UK that I had saw on Netflix a while ago, where the entire plot of the movie was that there is actually like not a federation, but like a galactic council of like creatures from different galaxies that have basically they go to other planets and they give one person on that planet like the power to do anything to see what that creature on that planet does. And if he uses it properly in a way that they seem fit, then they don't destroy that planet. And they'll actually invite that planet to be part of the Galactic Council. And so like it's a funny movie because they give him the powers and like he starts fucking around and doing all this stuff once he realizes it, and then he realizes that he has to do the right thing so that they won't nuke the planet and destroy it because they're not worthy to be a civilization. And it's an interesting theory, kind of what we were talking about. Like, are they like keeping tabs on us to see if we're allowed or worthy to be a part of the rest of the universe? You know what I mean?
Kids,
and I know it's a movie. What?
I just gave myself goosebumps because I was just, as you were saying that, I was thinking, I was like, dude, what if a fucking alien ship just came and just literally just laser beamed the fucking Earth out of the sky? And like literally the last thing we were doing was talking about this, and then just boop, gone. Like Alderaan, just gone.
They heard us doing this podcast, and they were like, they know too much. They're asking questions.
Shut them up.
You may file when ready. I mean, it's scary to think about because, I mean, if we don't know and that happened, that would be it. Like, we would be like, oh, shit, and then it's over.
That's all she wrote. It's crazy to think about, bro.
Yeah.
Those are like those stoner conversations you have when you're like sitting there just blazed out of your mind. You're like, wait, like, what if, like this just happened? And like, everyone looks at it like, dude.
Come on, man. I'm vibing, man.
You're ruining my high. You're freaking me out.
Could happen.
But I'm not gonna lie. I kind of wish something like that would happen because
Jesus
I
Christ.
Wow, dude.
No,
all right. You're never doing this show again with us, dude. Get out of here. I don't know if we can be friends. I'm not trying to die, dude.
I'm
Life
not.
might be tough times, but fuck that.
I'm not saying a global
I just hope we get obliterated.
I'm not saying a global meltdown event. I'm just saying something happened. Like if they were just like fuck up one section and we were like, oh, okay, it is a thing. Like,
what section would they fuck up, dude? We're already bombing everybody else around the country, around the world. We're doing that ourselves.
We've pretty much been on fire for like the past 30 years.
Yeah.
So it's fine.
Yeah, the worst would be if they just came in, snapped their fingers, and all the oil was gone.
Could you imagine, dude, if like say just for this scenario, like Joe Biden was talking to the aliens, like please don't blow us up, and they just look at him and give him the Obi-Wan line, you have done that yourself. So just bombing countries left and right.
I really hope that he's not the one that has to speak to them after, saying things like true international pressure. It's like, I don't need him to be the spokesperson right now.
Yeah. They're gonna need a new translator, dude.
He's like Leslie Nielsen in was that Scary Movie 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
The aliens just like, what, I forget to put pants on?
We're not so different after all.
It's literally Joe Biden.
It literally is.
Can you imagine if Trump was discussing things with the aliens? He'd be like, listen, you're going to come here. We're going to work out a deal. We're going to do this.
I'm the greatest human ever to live.
I'm like the king of this planet.
You don't know how lucky you are to talk to me.
I created Space Force. We can work together.
I'm way ahead of you.
It's tremendous. The Earth is a tremendous place. I've made it better.
By a magnitude of billions and billions.
Now, galactic credits won't work for them. Only money.
Only money. Huge.
No, I mean, okay, if you could pick anyone out in history, since we're on this topic, like anyone who was in charge of the United States, what president or person of power would you pick to be like the best spokesperson if the aliens were to come here and actually have conversation talks? Who do you think would be best suited to handle that?
There's two people I can think of off the
Does
top
it
of my
have to-
head.
Does it have to be president, or can it just
No,
be
I
like,
said president or elected official, like someone in power.
Oh, someone in power?
And it doesn't
fuck
even
that.
have to
I don't
be
want
someone.
nobody in power talking to these
Yeah, I know.
motherfuckers.
That's what I was just thinking.
They'll get us killed instantly.
I was
dude.
thinking presidents, so.
Well, the only reason I say that is because that's what would happen. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to have Leonardo DiCaprio like sitting there discussing about
Leonardo
like, you know,
DiCaprio. He'd probably try to find the youngest alien and take it home. Fuck that.
Presidents, I would think JFK.
That was my first. It was my only president. My other one, outside of position of power or anything, would just be Joe Rogan. I was like, that dude would be solid to send out there to talk on behalf of humans.
I agree with that.
that's solid.
The other president I was thinking of was Abraham Lincoln, but that's only because he hunts vampires, dude.
He's already hunting the supernatural.
Yeah,
he can
dude.
do it with the extraterrestrials.
Exactly.
Yep.
No, I mean Joe Rogan would be interesting. It'd be
Joe
interesting. 'Cause I
Rogan
know
should run for president.
he would. He
The
would. Do
sad
great.
part is he would win.
Yeah.
But I mean, would that be any different than Trump winning?
Yes, it would.
Yeah.
It'd be massively different. Joe Rogan's a Democrat. And I mean, contrary to popular belief or, you know, what he gets pegged for, because he has a lot of right-wing conspiracists on,
Yeah.
he is more liberal than anything.
It is funny they give him shit for the people he has on, not himself or his views.
Yeah.
Can you imagine him having a sit-down podcast episode with an alien?
It'd be great.
I mean, that's how I would want to. That's how I'd want to know.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
I mean, I want him to do presidential debates. He'll fact check
He would be
everybody
good.
right there.
He would be a good moderator for those. Yeah. Him and Jamie.
Yeah, him and Jamie. But hold, please.
It would be
yeah, it would be
solid.
cool. Yeah, I would agree with you guys. I mean, I couldn't think of anybody like super important. I mean, if I was thinking like outside the realm of people, I think it would
Norris,
be interesting. Yeah, Chuck Norris.
Just so they know what happens if they fuck with us.
Yeah, exactly.
Chuck Norris.
But
ain't
we
gonna
might have
do anything.
nukes, but we got Chuck
Just
fucking
fuck
Norris.
around.
Maybe that's why they haven't come here yet. They're waiting for him to die before it, so they know it's safe to like show up.
Yep.
Maybe they're waiting for Betty White to die, dude.
Maybe Betty White's an alien.
She
Maybe
could
that's
be.
it. I mean, she's survived a long time.
Yeah, she has.
I don't know. I mean, it's just the whole topic of all of it is just very interesting. You know, and I obviously want to do another episode where we go into more of the Egyptian side of things, because I
Me
know
too.
when we've talked about that before, it was very interesting. Even going back to when we had our discussion on an episode about the Ark of the Covenant, you know, it's like I feel that has a lot of ties to this type of conversation as well too. You know, about, you know, those people dying and going blind and stuff like that. And it's like could that be alien technology? Could that be something that was brought here from them, and that's why us as humans can't handle being around it? You know, I had that thought process after we did that episode when I was looking into this stuff today.
Yeah, I
And-
could totally see that.
Yeah, because I mean, it's just something so safeguarded, and it's like, why does that happen? You know?
It's just like the Holy Grail, and, you know, people very Catholic hating the Da Vinci Code book because it proposes a theory that possibly the Holy Grail is just the bloodline of Jesus, and Jesus was just a normal man. And it's the Holy
Yep.
Grail because it literally would debunk the entire Christianity belief.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of gray area with stuff in our history that could be, you could attribute to all of this.
Yeah.
And I mean,
There's a lot
It's
of
interesting.
unexplained history.
yeah, completely. I mean, is there any other like big hard hitting things that you can think of that we could flesh out on, like as far as like this UFO thing? Anything you guys want to like wrap this up with? Like specific sightings that you guys have seen that like you've done research into or anything like that? Because I know like the one thing that always interests me was that series, because I didn't know anything about the Blue Book project. I didn't know nothing about that until I watched the series that they had on the History Channel for that, which I believe they did 2 seasons. I only watched a couple episodes because I had stuff in my personal life where I just lost track of the show and stuff. But it was very interesting because I didn't know that was a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that is the most interesting part of this entire thing, because that's where it kind of like started and where they were trying to beginning the eradication of all this information and, trying to say like, oh, they saw gas in the air.
Yeah.
That wasn't an alien. And it's like gas, like
swamp gas or some shit like
swamp
that.
gas.
Yeah.
Really? Like, how do you miss?
I was just saying mine's the Go Fast. I would just look up the Go Fast video, and was it Nimmel? Is it Nimmel or Gimmel? I think it's Gimmel. I think it's a Gimmel. That's where an entire military team, one part of the team saw just one aircraft, another part of the team saw like a fleet. So
Really?
yeah, and that's the one I was talking. They were all out there together, but on different sides of it, and only two of them. I think two of them saw one, and the rest of the unit saw like a bunch, and their stories just match up. And it's just like how do these two different units just like completely see the same thing but different angles of it or something like that. And I don't know, and the Go Fast one, there's literally Navy pilots lock onto it, and they're I think the most compelling thing in that video is the comms between the pilots, because they had seen it and they were talking about it before they lock onto it, and then the one actually gets a lock on it on the radar. He's like, "Oh, I got it!" And he's like, and the one guy's like, "Look at it, it's flying," and it's just fucking cruising, and then it just at one point just fucking goes too fast. It just gets away from it, the lock. But that one to me is like, because it's like literally these naval pilots like are freaking out about what they're seeing.
Yeah.
And those guys know the difference between a fucking jet or something that's being propelled way too fucking fast and shit like that. So
what
those
about
two
you, Nick?
to me are the best.
What's like your like one that you like fixate on the most?
I don't really have a specific one. It's just always ones that do come out. I don't know. Like I said, I kind of just tend to believe this shit. So there's not really any specific ones. It's just,
He believes it all, dude.
Not all of it, but I just,
Weather balloon? Nah.
No.
UFO.
We know how much the government lies and all that shit.
Yeah.
So anything they ever say, I'm always already skeptical anyways. So.
It was a hack, dude.
Yeah.
It's funny that it took you a few days to think about that.
It took me just later that day.
Oh, later that day? After I said no?
When you text. Yeah.
Okay.
And I had to, because I didn't think about John Brennan right away. And then after, like, you text me and I was in there and started thinking about him, I was like, oh, yeah. And then that thing I sent you on Twitter, I was like, this is funny.
Yeah. We were just talking about the oil thing.
Oh,
I know we talked in our CIA podcast way back in the day how the CIA, what do they call it? Not the leader of the CIA, the head of the CIA.
The director or whatever.
Director. He literally said, whenever they needed to get something done, or whenever something wasn't going exactly as planned, they would just blame it on a hack. Mm-hmm. And what happened with this oil pipeline? It was hacked. Like, okay.
Yeah. And then they got, was it 90 million something in Bitcoin or some shit like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Pipeline was a hack. The election was a hack. The election again was a hack.
And it's weird too how they talked about this like gas shortage and stuff with it, but now the pipeline's back on and everything. So it's like,
yeah,
was there really a shortage? Was it just a panic thing the news was running with because they knew it'd be ratings, or was there like, I don't know, it's just a lot of weird shit going on with it.
To me, the shortage came from the hysteria of things. Like, yes, there was going to be one eventually if it couldn't get resolved, but the hysteria of people going out and getting it all.
I'm going to tell you exactly what it was. I'm going to tell you exactly what it was.
What?
This was all a plot by the government and the media to justify the gas prices.
I could see that too.
100%.
I believe it.
There's going to be a shortage. Well, that makes sense why gas prices are up because, supply and demand. There's not really a supply out there, but the demand hasn't changed. Fucking
Even if they
suck
weren't
it.
like directly involved in the hack, I could guarantee they probably use this as like just basically a PR move. They're like, oh, it's not even related to them. We're like, we don't know who the fuck did it, but we could spin this to help ourselves.
Well,
Let's just put this out there.
They said who did it was that Russian hacker organization or whatever, but even they came out and they were like, yeah, we don't do things that hurts real people. Like, they're kind of like anonymous. Like, they'll do shit, they'll fuck shit up for governments, but they're not going to do shit that hurts daily people in their daily lives. They literally put that out there, and that I had read that before you sent that text about it, and that's when I was like, yeah, this is something like an organization like that, if they did a hack that successful, they'd fucking own the shit out of it.
Oh yeah,
I did,
and they didn't.
I didn't see that it was they blamed a Russian group, but
Yeah.
I mean, like that's so tainted now.
I think
Like
Dark Side is what their name is.
anytime they say anything about Russians, I just roll my eyes because that shit's just so tainted now.
Our government is like the dude we talked about in the beginning from the History Channel. Instead of aliens, it's always Russia.
Literally.
That's exactly what it is. And they look crazier and crazier every time they say it, to where you're just like, I can't even with this guy.
Yeah.
That's a good analogy. That's actually a great analogy to describe it. But yeah, so I mean, I think that'll pretty much do it as far as our first discussion of UFO, because I know we're going to get into more of this, because like Cody said, you know, who knows what's going to come out on June 1st. You know, if we get some hard hitting stuff, obviously we're going to cover it. You know, we're obviously going to keep an eye on this stuff. If any of you listening or watching know anything about this, find anything, you know, definitely join our Discord, share it in there, like and subscribe on the YouTube page, comment if you know anything about this, what your thoughts are on this. It's a very interesting topic. It's something that we've dealt with as a society, civilization, you know, as a planet for fucking forever.
Yeah.
So we'd be curious to hear what you have to think about it. You know, obviously you can look at all the sources that, you know, we've looked at too. You know, any of the news sources are covering that right now. You know, obviously Joe Rogan had a bunch of people on there. But yeah, it's something to think about, and let us know what you think, and we will catch you on the next episode.
See you on the flippity flop.
See ya.